Welcome to the Sustainable Dish Podcast. I'm Diana Rogers, a real food registered dietitian, author, and sustainability advocate. I co-host this podcast with James Connolly, who was a producer on my film, Sacred Cow. I also founded the Global Food Justice Alliance, an initiative advocating for the inclusion of animal source foods like meat, dairy, and eggs for a more nutritious, sustainable, and equitable worldwide food system. You can check it out and join me at globalfoodjustice.org. Thanks again for listening, and now on to our show. Too many of us overlook the role of collagen when it comes to having strong bones. Beyond healthy skin, nails, and hair, collagen fortifies your health in several important ways. I want you to learn more about the importance of collagen, so I'm sending my community to review an article from a brand I trust, Native Path. Learn 7 reasons why each of us should be consuming more collagen at sustainabledish.com/restore. And stick around for how you can save as much as 45% off Native Path collagen later in this episode. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. I'm really excited to have Andrea Bemis here with me today. I have never met her in person, but I've been following her work, and she actually has family right in the same town, farming in the same town where I live. So we're hoping to meet up over the holidays when she's in town. But she's got a new book out. She has other books. She is similar to me in that she has sort of dedicated her life to healthy food production, and is a mom, and
Diana, thank
just
you so
got
much
over
for having
pneumonia.
me.
Welcome,
I'm glad
Andrea.
we finally are making this work, and I feel like our paths have been so close to crossing multiple times, and so this is lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. And this podcast is going to sound a little different because I don't have my normal microphone set up because technology was not on our side today. But why don't we start with just, I love just kind of, where did you grow up? How did you get into
All the
farming?
above.
How
Yeah.
did you meet
Wow.
your partner?
I
Everything.
grew up in the Pacific Northwest, just right outside of Portland, Oregon. And my now husband, he is from your neck of the woods. He's from Concord, Massachusetts, and we met working on a dude ranch in Montana 20 years ago. So we had summer jobs at this ranch, and he grew up on a organic vegetable farm in Concord, and I knew nothing about farming. I had no interest in farming when I first met him. He had no interest in going and working back on his family farm. Um, and yeah, my background is not in food, it's not in agriculture. But he, we kind of bounced around in our 20s, and eventually I started to be kind of drawn towards more of a grounding lifestyle. We moved around a bunch, and it was time to kind of settle down, and I really wanted to be working outside and more with my hands. And Taylor was like, I know where we could get jobs. I know my family would hire us if we wanted to come back and work on the family farm. And so we did. And that was we've been farming for, I guess, now like 14 years. And we worked 3 years back in Concord on Hutchins Farm, which is his family's farm. Um, and then we were there for 3 years, loved it, fell in love with farming, fell in love with agriculture. But my heart is I'm a Pacific Northwest girl. I really missed being out here. And we kind of wanted a smaller operation. So we ended up out in Parkdale, Oregon, which is just like an hour and a half east of Portland, and that is where we are. We are today.
That's really interesting, only because I almost have the flip side of that story. I met my ex-husband, Andrew, almost 30 years ago. I'm about 10 years older than you, at UMass Amherst. He was not a farmer, but after and I had worked on farms as my summer job on Long Island through high school and college. And then we moved to Portland, Oregon together
No way.
after college to get like jobs, right? Like we didn't know what we wanted to do. We didn't know where we wanted to live. And so we just kind of like settled on Portland, Oregon, thought give it a try. We drove out there in a truck and we both had corporate jobs, but that's where he really decided he wanted to be a farmer. Was actually in Portland. We kept going out to Sauvie Island on the weekends, where there's a nice CSA out there, and he read some Wendell Berry books and was like, "I'm going to be a farmer." And then we were thinking about starting a family. His family's back here, and we were closer to his parents, and so we moved back here to start farming and raise a family out this way. So we're just like flip flop.
Yes, this is what. Yeah, we really are just kind of ships passing. That's great.
Yeah,
So wait, then
that's funny.
How long were you in the Portland area?
We were there. I mean, I think you were probably 10 years old when we were there.
Okay.
So it was my early 20s.
Okay.
Um,
Great.
yeah.
Great.
We loved it so much, but it's just when you grow up in a landscape, I think, and you're really connected to nature, I think there's certain, I mean, I love the Pacific Northwest, but we also just kind of felt like New England was really where our roots were.
Hmm.
And you know, that urge to start a family was really strong in me. And you know, not knowing, not having any family in the Pacific Northwest was hard for both of us.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
because we just decided there's lots of lovely places to live, but we really wanted that connection to family. And his uh, family is all rooted out here, and so they got to be really close with our kids as they were growing up, which is really nice.
that's wonderful. And then did you raise them in Carlisle?
So we started in Hamilton, Massachusetts,
Okay.
at the farm of, and actually this is funny because a bunch of my listeners probably don't know the story. Um, we were in Hamilton, Massachusetts at the farm of General George Patton, like from World War II.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It was called Green Meadows Farm. And when the general retired, he had a son that was also General George Patton. They didn't do like juniors or seconds or anything. So his son, George Patton, was in the Vietnam War. And when he retired, he decided to turn their family estate into a working farm. He always wanted to be a farmer. So he didn't have any farming background. He just wanted to be a farmer. And we the farm, when we got there, the general was really old, died a couple years after we got there. But we really turned it from something that was struggling to a really vibrant CSA farm with 500 members, and we started an animal program there and everything, and it was really great. So we were in Hamilton for 10 years, and then the opportunity in Carlisle, Massachusetts opened up at Clark Farm, which is like I could walk to Hutchins Farm from Clark Farm, which is really funny.
Uh-huh.
And that farm was brokered through an organization called Land for Good, which matches landowners with farmers. And so they had like uh, a day where everyone could come check it out. It was a gorgeous place. And then they invited us to apply. There were 40 farming families that applied, and our family got the job. And so we divorced 8 years into that job.
Okay.
So, and my son is going into agriculture now. So I have a 19-year-old son that is in college right now, but he plans on being a farmer. Maybe not. He's not exactly sure where. Maybe Southern New Hampshire. He's a big surfer. So it might be Southern New Hampshire, but it very likely could be Clark Farm where he ends up.
That's great. Oh, that's so cool that he's gonna follow in the footsteps. I feel like
Yeah.
that's the dream. You can't really control that, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and, we didn't pressure him, he's just always been like, he even knew, like, instinctively when it was time to harvest the corn. Like, he just it
Uh-huh.
was really neat to watch a kid, like, both of us didn't grow up on the farm, and I'm sure, it's similar for you where, like, you're watching your kids have a completely different, relationship to the land than you did when you were growing up, having not grown up as a farm kid.
Totally, and it's so I mean, it is so hard to I mean, I'm like, "You girls are living the dream, you don't even know it," but it feels so sweet to watch them, grow they kind of get to relive childhood through watching them out in the dirt, and, yeah, it's great, and who knows what they'll end up doing, but it's a wonderful way to raise a family.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter, appreciated it, got more into the food end of things, works at a farm to table restaurant that the farm supplies the produce to, and, is thinking about studying other stuff in college. She's, currently the idea is neuroscience, but, who knows what she'll end up doing. I'm sure there'll be a food component always in her
Mhm.
life and
That's great.
nature. Yeah,
That's great. That's
yeah.
awesome.
So talk a little bit more about the farm and what you guys produce. Is it a CSA? What do you do there?
Yeah, so we have 6 acres of land, and we're cultivating just under 3. And it's mixed veggies. And we do CSA. We have 150 members, 150 families that do the CSA, and we supply to a local grocery store, and then we do the farmers market. And that's we way back in the early years, we were all over the place. We were trying to sell multiple farmers markets, multiple restaurants, CSA, and we over the years have learned just to simplify, because that is just a lot more sustainable. So the CSA we continue to grow every year. We grow the membership, um, and yeah, and the farmers markets have actually the farmers market that we do has just been awesome, and every year it's getting busier. The Our little town is just full of rock stars that are coming in and buying local produce, which is amazing because otherwise we won't be able to do this.
Yeah, I spent many years doing farmers markets in the Boston area, and my memory is heat exhaustion, dehydration, um, and but it's fun to set it all up. It's really fun. You get those regular customers that come every single week to chat with and everything. So, and you get to know the other farmers at the market. And I think farmers markets are starting to do a better job too of controlling how many farmer like if you have too many farmers, then the prices it can get a little funky with people undercutting with price and
Mhm.
everything like that. So I think farmers markets are starting to do a little bit better job of like managing how many vendors are there and making it fair for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, and we've been at this farmers market now for and this is our 11th season at this one, and like you said, the friendships with the other vendors and is like priceless. They feel like family, especially like after the long winter and that first farmers market of the season, just um seeing everyone again and watching kiddos grow up. It's great. It's been wonderful. So yeah, we're in a very wonderful community, which um, we've realized is just we're lucky because I know it's not, you know there's a lot of places out there that I don't think would support farmers the way that our community does.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about your food career, your food writing career, and everything. Because at the Concord Bookshop here in town, your books are often in the window. Ironically, they don't even carry Sacred Cow. Um, uh,
What?
I've had discussions with them about that. I think I think Nick Offerman mentioned, I think it was him who said, "Oh, that sounds like the bookshop of acceptable thoughts," or something like that. But they proudly feature you, so
Okay.
congratulations, you made the cut. But so you, pardon me.
I just that's so funny and ironic.
I know.
Well,
Um,
glad I'm in the window.
yeah. So your latest book that I wanted to have you on about is, and I'm going to hold it up for the people who are watching here on the video, is Let Them Eat Dirt. And it came even with this adorable little onesie. So I have to find somebody who just had a baby to give this to,
Yeah.
because most of my friends are, I think, in between that. Most of my friends are parents of college age kids, but I'm sure I know somebody who's going to have a baby soon. And I am somebody who was one of those weirdos that made all my baby food, not all, but most of my baby food. There just weren't good options, and there's better options today. Like Serenity Kids, I think is fantastic option for, prepared baby food. But I was such an advocate of making sure that my kids had a really developed palate for bitter tastes for vegetables, and just got that nutrient density. So much of baby food today is only fruit purees, is full of sugar. So walk us through this book, and also, kind of how did you get into like the social media and the blogging, and the other books that you made too.
Well, yeah, I guess backing up when we first got into farming, I didn't grow up eating, we grew up with kind of the standard American diet. My parents were, they weren't horrible cooks, but they, I mean, we had spaghetti and meatballs and, you know, um, pizza, but I just wasn't a big foodie. But when we moved out to Hutchins Farm and started um, farming, we were growing all these vegetables that I had no idea what they were. I had not eaten kohlrabi or beets or rutabagas, and we were killing ourselves growing all this stuff. And so I, told Taylor, my now husband, I was like, we need to learn how to cook. Because I'll be damned if we're working our butts off all day, killing ourselves, and then, you know, just eating, I don't know, pizza every night or going to Chang'an and Concord and just eating Chinese food every night. Like I really was committed to learning how to cook and and for me it was just like it was so basic at first. I was just, doing sheet pan vegetables, just like I just was like, I'm just going to roast everything. But slowly, and with the crew members, we'd be out, you get so intimate with the crew. You're working in like horrendous conditions, all the it's, hot and muggy or pouring down rain and or freezing cold. And so you really bond with the crew. And so we would be, out in the field, I don't know, maybe thinning beets, and they would be, I don't know, next to the dill, and we'd just start talking about food and oh, I'm gonna roast some beets and make like a dill pesto, and I don't know. So the crew at Hutchins and me and my husband, we just started all talking about food and fun creations, and so that's sort of where the culinary curiosity like really kind of came in, and then just quickly learning that when food grows at the same time seasonally, it goes together. It just, when you're harvesting stuff at the same time, it's just going to go together. So, um yeah, so I started to play around in the kitchen at back east, and we had a tiny kitchen. Everything was studio size, and you don't need much to eat well. And that was a great lesson. But yeah, so I then started a little just a little food blog that like my mom and dad were reading, just, about working on the farm and, the creations that I was whipping up in the kitchen. And, it was like some tongue in cheek about just the hot days and, kind of complaining about like heavy crates and I don't know, just the monotony of the days. But um the food blog was a fun outlet, and that um just inspired me to keep writing and cooking and sharing these recipes that I would kind of come up with. And that evolved over the years. Eventually it wasn't just my mom and dad reading it. And the community, I kind of created a little community of readers, um and that led to eventually to a cookbook that my first cookbook that and then we eventually moved. We worked at Hutchins Farm for 3 years and ended up packing our bags and finding ourselves out, kind of near where I grew up. And but I documented all of this, even the meals we were eating on our like road trip, out west. So people, kind of followed along. And um, but the for me the main reason that I really started to love sharing the recipes was I was hoping that I could inspire people to cook the vegetables that we were growing because we were selling them and we needed to make money. And like, well, if people come and they don't know what to do with rutabaga, they're not going to buy it. This is a gnarly looking vegetable and a lot of people don't really know what to do with it. And um, so that really has inspired me to keep on keeping on. Like a lot of our CSA members now, um, I have been vocal about being really appreciative that we share recipe ideas with their weekly boxes because yeah, it can get turnips again, kale again. It can be, monotonous. And so I have fun creating all these different recipes. And it started with, I still joke, I'm not a chef. I am just, I'm like everyone else. I just have gotten um, really creative because I, almost out of desperation because we grow all of this. So I'm like, well, we're eating this and um, I want to stay excited in the kitchen. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember coming up with recipes like way back in the beginning, in my 20s when we were just starting with farming, and I thought that cookbook authors and people who made recipes somehow had some kind of magic that was unattainable to me, and so I would search out for other recipes and put them in our CSA newsletter. And it took me a while before I realized, oh, I can also just invent things on my own. And for me, it was actually learning that I had celiac disease, and trying. That really like exploded my experimentation in the kitchen because I kind of had to work around some constraints anyway with dietary stuff. Um, and so that's really where all of that bloomed for me. So your first book, Dishing Up the Dirt, right? Is the
Hmm.
name of your first book?
Yep.
Yes. And so talk about how having kids changed, or if it did, but changed your life, but then also maybe change your approach to recipes. How did you come up with the recipes for the kids version of your culinary
Well,
arm?
I mean, this has been the the most humbling experience because cooking for and now with, my toddler is a whole other ball game because you can be armed with great intentions and then your kid is gonna throw broccoli on the floor and or your baby. And so um I really became more passionate about nutrition once I became a mom because I started to learn the statistics of over 40% of kiddos having like at least one chronic disease that you know the food companies have just totally hijacked their taste buds from infancy. Going down the baby food aisle at the grocery store is overwhelming. It's heartbreaking when you look at what is being marketed. And I just yeah and as a new vulnerable mom too, when my oldest, who's now 3.5, when she was just starting solids, our pediatrician, I love him, but it was, start with rice cereal. Just kind of this outdated what I feel is very outdated advice. Start with rice cereal, but also they can just kind of eat whatever you're eating. If you're eating a French fry, they can have there was just no, y- you're just sort of left with, to your own devices. And am lucky that we have a farm and, I all of a sudden was like, wait, am I going to feed my kiddo? And I did, I fed her rice cereal. That was like one of the first things I did. And I like did not, I wasn't listening to my own gut. I'm like, wait a second, what am I doing? And so that kind of, I started to go deep into childhood nutrition and learning way more about what their little bodies need, what foods are more easily digestible for their developing systems. And and I really wanted them to be exposed to strong flavors really early on, to hopefully um keep them uh you know eager to continue to having just like a more wide range of their palates. But I just the health, the nutrition part really has just struck a chord with me, because we're exposed to so much these days now. Just our bodies are so taxed, and if we can control one thing, it's the food that we decide to bring in the house. And I know our kids ultimately decide what goes in their mouth. I do know that, but I can decide what ingredients come into the house. Um, and it's been a wild ride, and I'm um, so humbled by feeding young kiddos. But it's possible to get your kids eating really tasty, you know quote unquote kid friendly food. It's not really it's adult food. It's family recipes, but we want to make it so that it's kid friendly, but that it's nutrient dense, and it tastes really good. And I think that where a lot of us go wrong, and where even I went wrong, is feeding them bland, boring food. Well, of course they're not going to want to eat this. It's got to taste good to you if it's going to taste good to them. And so, yeah, that's really inspired my, you know, the this most recent cookbook. Just I'm so fired up about the food industry and what our kids are eating. Um and I just they didn't consent to this. They didn't consent to having poison be added to their food. And I really want, you know it starts at home. And I think that the louder we can get about it, I think the better. But that's sort of where I'm at.
Yeah, and you're at such a nice stage too where you can control everything, as you might imagine with me with teenagers. My son thinks it's really funny to come home with double cheeseburgers from McDonald's or something, like
Hmm.
he thinks it's funny, and he's like almost like an act of rebellion. And I'm like, okay, well, I gave you a good background, and he burns like 6,000 calories a day winter surfing, so I'm not going to give them grief, but I did give them a good upbringing from the very early days. It does get tricky when I mean, even now, I'm sure when you go on play dates, and it's hard to watch the goldfish. I call it goldfish culture, but it's like this
Uh-huh.
constant stream of crackers all the time. And what this does to kids is it actually takes that edge off the hunger just a little bit to allow them to push away food later. And they're actually creating um, uh, pickier eaters than without even intending to. And you know what? Those organic versions of goldfish crackers are still they're just like that. And not that you have to be 100% perfect all the time, but the endless snacking, this constant snack culture, and even today in food culture, what we're seeing is less meals overall eaten, more snacking overall, less, just sitting down and eating. And there really is something to um, sitting down as a family and eating, or if it's not the entire family because one person's working late, but sitting down, eating, and actually tasting these stronger flavors as young kids. My kids will, when we go to Brazilian barbecue, they're like, bring out the chicken hearts. Like, they think it's funny, like the more tentacles the better. Like, they love playing with and experimenting with food. And I think that only can happen if they're really exposed at a very young age to great, strong flavors, like you said. I'm picking up where I left off earlier about collagen. Native Path Collagen is a brand that you can trust, and it's the collagen that I personally use and I recommend as a dietitian. I've noticed a big improvement in my hair, skin, and nails since I've started using this collagen supplement, and I've noticed that my joints feel a lot better too. Sourced from only pasture-raised bovine hide, Native Path has only one ingredient, and it's 100% hydrolyzed. Every scoop of Native Path grass-fed collagen is consistently formulated with 10 grams of the highest quality grass-fed type 1 and type 3 collagen, which make up 90% of the collagen in your body. Native Path collagen is completely flavorless and blends smooth into any liquid, hot or cold. Get Native Path Collagen as low as 45% off plus free shipping. Just head to sustainabledish.com/nativepath to get this deal and to start restoring your health with Native Path grass-fed collagen. If you're looking for a guide to help you get your diet back on track, to help you feel your very best, and to learn more about meat's role in a healthy and sustainable and ethical food system, then I highly recommend you take my Sustainivore course. I've condensed all of my knowledge in human nutrition and agriculture and have made it accessible to everyone in 8 easy modules. There are quizzes, tips, and motivational emails to keep you on your journey. It also comes with a free cookbook and other great bonuses. So eat for your health, the planet, and your values. Head to sustainivore.com today and check it out.
That the food is really important, but the ritual around it, sitting down and letting right now my oldest daughter does like to, help, you know, s- sprinkle like, a little condiment on or a little cheese or, just like giving her a little, autonomy at the table. And we have a little dinner bell, like the whole kind of ritual, I think, um, just, gets everyone excited. And it is a joy. It's a pleasure to sit down and not be so rushed. But yeah, I do know with my oldest, if she's snacked, yeah, it's she's less likely to try new things because she's not as hungry and less likely to eat a proper meal. And this, yeah, the snacking is tough, and with the play dates and preschool and all of that, it's it's been I used to be a lot more scared. Like I was so scared the first few times that we were going out and seeing the crackers and just trying to like really control. And now I do have this like, okay, when we're out of the house and she knows, like I just have to like put my hands up a little bit because it was so exhausting. I wish that stuff was just outlawed. That's what's so sad is that it's everywhere. And I think for me to not drive myself so crazy, it went back to we eat 90% of our meals and food come from the house. And so when we're out in the world, here we go. And because I was trying to control so much and it was driving me crazy. And and yeah, and it's hard when not other people aren't on board because you do look like the crazy one. Um, and I think people, will say, "Oh, well, are you depriving
Yeah.
your kid?" And no, no, I'm not. But that's just the culture we live in. And so that's been hard. But yeah, I going back to just you know, it's hard to once you know things, and I know, I mean, you have done so much research. You can't unknow the statistics. You can't unknow the facts, and that's wonderful. And it's also so overwhelming at times. But I think that it's really important um, to really, I mean, I keep looking at these young kids and it seems so innocent, but they really don't know. They're too young to know that this is this is really bad for your body. This is really bad for your brain. This is really bad for your gut. And I think that it's a shame that, they just have, yeah, they haven't consented to what's getting put in their body. And so I don't know. I'm hoping that this cookbook and that the recipes that I share just kind of inspire parents. It doesn't have to be complicated to feed your kids. It can be very simple, but it can be flavorful and it can be convenient. I mean, not as convenient as a package, but the recipes are pretty approachable and for all age groups, including the adults.
Yeah. Yeah, what are some of the, what will you talk about some foods that you were, like, shocked that your kids liked right away, or maybe some that, took a little bit longer and maybe you had some tricks to get them to like, I always tried to, emphasize, and this is maybe for older kids, right? Because your kids are still toddlers, but, my kids were, really wanting to be strong, and so, I would say, "Well,
Uh-huh.
this food gives you this superpower," or like I
Uh-huh.
would try to just
Yeah.
encourage you know um different stuff, or if they asked for something that one of her friends had, that they maybe
Uh-huh.
had at a friend's house, I'd say, "Oh, the grocery store was out of those
Uh-huh.
crackers." Because I would go shopping without them. I think it's hard to, when you have to have your
Uh-huh.
kids with you when you go to the grocery store. It's a lot easier to have that time by yourself, to go shopping. But yeah, talk a little bit about some of the
Well, the
foods
biggest surprise
that
with
your
both of
kids
my
were particularly
kiddos
drawn to.
is sauerkraut is one of the first food one of the earlier foods, not the first food, but one of the earlier foods that both of them love. My youngest one is just over a year, and my toddler to this day eats sauerkraut out of the jar. And as an adult, I didn't start eating sauerkraut till I was an adult, and it took me a while to get, I was like, "This is gnarly." Um, yeah, yeah. My girls will eat a jar of
Me
sauerkraut.
too.
They love it, and I give my kiddos cod liver oil, a little cod liver oil. They both like the flavor of that. Yeah. Uh-huh. Which I again didn't
Mine
take cod
too, they
liver oil until I
loved
was an
it.
adult, and I it took a long time. Mhm. But I do
It
think that
was
these
hard to
young
get down
palates
for a long time.
do get drawn towards do appreciate the stronger flavors. I am seeing though my oldest daughter has since the get-go has really been adventurous. Is a pretty adventurous eater and will eat. She loves sardines, she loves kraut. Um Loves meat. Meat was a big one. So that was the first foods that I really gave my girls was like pureed, like liver, beef, some meatballs, with like some steamed vegetables kind of in there. But I know the meat is so good for their it's so easy on their digestive systems and all the amino acids. But that my youngest one definitely is it's taking her way more exposures to certain foods to start to give them a try. Where my oldest one, you could put anything in front of her and she would just go to town. And my youngest one now is she's she's a different eater. And she's still being exposed to all the same stuff, but she'll be the first, she'll
Yeah.
throw a little banana on the ground. Don't want that. Like, I do a lot of these little savory kind of egg breakfast muffins and she's and I know a lot of parents, one morning she'll eat it, the next morning it's, but um keeps me on my toes, but I still am like this is what these are the choices. You can put what you want in your mouth, but these are the choices and but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you learn when you're becoming a dietitian is that the
Yep.
parents control the food, the kids control the quantity. right? So you can put it all out on the table and the
Mhm.
kids are in charge of how much that they're gonna eat, but you're in charge of that. And it's funny that you mentioned that your older one was more adventurous. I time and time again have heard that the older one is the more adventurous one, and I don't know. I mean, in general, I've noticed that the second child tends to be
Uh-huh.
more, like, rebellious, a little less of a people
Uh-huh.
pleaser, a little less interested in making you happy, a little more autonomous and rebellious, and that was definitely the case with my 2 kids. I know, with a lot of my friends, that was the case too,
Uh-huh.
and my daughter was much pickier than my son. She's the second, and she also still to this day doesn't really care what I think. Um, where where my son is much
Uh-huh.
more, worried about what I think of
Uh-huh.
him, and, so I don't know if that's a second child thing necessarily, but also I
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
noticed that her palate she was much
Mhm.
more into the berries, so she had much more of a sweet tooth,
Right.
but, like, you can control what that sweet is. So I would just plunk her down, like, literally in her diaper in the strawberry patch, and she'd be there,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
very happy for a very, very long time just eating the strawberries, where my son was
Uh-huh.
more into the sardines and,
Uh-huh.
whole lemons, like, loved just sucking on a lemon, um, that kinda stuff. So, it's funny how, when you have your first kid, you
Right.
think it's all just because you're a great mom that they're, eating this way, and
You
then you have your
totally.
second kid and you realize that
Uh-huh.
you have
Totally.
very little to
Yeah,
do with anything.
exactly.
It's like
It's very humbling. It's very humbling. But yeah, no, but um they're a good time and they really are. They're the reason I kind of keep at it. Because I do want them to I know these first few years of their little bodies developing, I know it's really kind of I don't want to sound dramatic, but kind of it's a critical time to really set their systems up for success, and that's why I am pretty diligent, and and yeah, and it's been fun. It has been fun. I will say it's been fun. It's been fun to create these recipes um and have like real time you know a real time experiment.
Yeah. Well, we know that I mean, as a dietitian, I can get serious about it for a minute because I take it very seriously, and I think we all need to take it way more seriously than doctors and big food take it. But getting that DHA from the sardines and cod liver oil, getting the iron from liver, and meat sources, like they actually need those nutrients, and they're uniquely only found in animal source foods. And so that's not to insert my own mission into this, but it fully aligns with everything that I'm doing over at Global Food Justice because we've got this huge plant-based narrative happening right now. We have meatless Mondays in schools, which I know is only one day a week, but the messaging that these kids are getting from kindergarten up on through high school is that meat is not only unhealthy but it's also wrong for the planet. And as you know, there are better and worse ways to both prepare meat and to raise it. And it's not as simple as meat no, vegetable yes. There are nutrients, especially vitamin B12, which is only found in meat. A
Mhm.
deficiency in that can cause permanent brain damage in children. And if they're not getting the right levels of iron, it can slow their growth, both physically and mentally. And you would have to eat like 7 bowls of spinach to get the iron that you can get in a very small piece of liver or in a small piece of beef. And so, childhood malnutrition can show up as underweight, but it can also show up as obesity. And so we're seeing these obese yet malnourished children all from the food environment that we have
Mhm.
today, which is set up to make food companies money instead of nourishing children's brains and bodies. And so I'm particularly passionate about kids' health and making sure that they are given what they deserve to have, which is the best start in life. I don't care if adults
Mhm.
want to, mess with their diets later and eat something that's, aligns with whatever ideals they have, but baby omnivores need those nutrients that omnivores get. There's a reason for that. There's a reason why our brains are so big. We evolved to eat omega 3s, DHA, B12, and iron, and it's just not possible to get those in the right amounts from
Amen. I mean,
a diet that excludes
it was
meat.
so well said, and that's why it is so infuriating that, and I don't want, again, it's vulnerable being a young mom, but you to for moms and parents and caregivers to know that your pediatrician can be wonderful, but they're not a dietitian. They're not as educated in the nutrition department. I think that is where that's where it starts. We just start taking our pediatrician's advice, which is great to a certain extent. But I think when it comes to the food, that is not there. And I know that there are more pediatricians that are progressive and more holistic, but I think that there's a lot that it's not at the forefront, and that's where
Yeah.
parents go to learn about, yeah, when you first start feeding your babe, it can be really overwhelming, and you're nervous about all sorts of things, choking, there's a lot there. um but I the nutrition part is just seems like such an afterthought with your primary doctor a lot of the time. And I think that is just such a shame. And then and then they go to preschool and daycare, and the food that's provided there, um it it's got to change. It's got to change. It
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking. It's prison food for the most vulnerable population.
Right. Well, I'm here if you need to reach out to me. I did, it was a real struggle for me when my kids entered kindergarten. Um, Birthday parties at 11 o'clock in the
Mhm,
morning with cupcakes with icing that was like 4 or 5 inches tall on top of the
mhm,
cupcakes for a child that's not even 50 pounds. Before lunch, I was really horrified. And when I went to the school to get on their wellness committee and try to change these food
mhm,
celebrations to just like, why
mhm.
can't the kids bring in a t-shirt and have everyone sign a t-shirt, or have somebody come in and read a special book or something like that,
Yeah.
I was shamed by the other parents. And that they were angry with me that their kids were missing out. And I was like, I assure you, your kindergartner is not, expecting
Mhm,
gigantic cupcakes at school. Like, do this at home, but it doesn't need to happen in the school system. So I'm sure there will be situations that you run into that are going to be like that. You know, and that's even separate from the anti-meat messaging that is currently happening in the schools. And my kids at Concord Carlisle High School, from their science teachers, were told to eat plant-based burgers to do their part for the environment. And so
mhm,
it'll happen throughout your time as a parent. And it's a really tricky thing to navigate in a graceful way, and because it's so infuriating. And so I've learned to do my best with what I can control in my own food environment, and then hope that my kids are smart enough to navigate all of this on their
mhm,
own when they go
mhm.
out into the
Yeah.
world. And for
Yeah.
the most part, they're
No.
pretty
It's again, I think it does go to where your values at home are, and to just keep modeling what you want your kids to hopefully um you know be exposed to it. And as a farmer and food producer, like, it's not, you also, go back to like the farmer who grew this, how were they treated? How was the land treated? How was the animal treated? And um, at the back of the kids cookbook, there's like my favorite poem um, called Before We Eat by Pat Bryson. But it's a kid's picture book, but it's all about thanking the farmers and the producers and the drivers that, get basically every step to get the food to your table. And I think that's also a great message starting at such a young age for your kids that there's a face behind your food, and you want to have a connection with that, and that doesn't just come from a package. um,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your
so it
time.
just came
This
it just came
book,
out
what's the
it came
release
out
date? Is it already
July
out? Almost out?
18th. It came out last month, so it is out. It's available nationwide, wherever books are sold. So everyone can yes,
Including the Concord Bookstore. You could
yes.
ask them for a copy of
Yes,
Sacred Cow when you
yes.
go in to
Actually,
get
our
Let Them
crew
Eat
members
Dirt.
are gonna watch your documentary. We have a couple of young farmers that are out here. That one gal is newly back to eating meat, and yeah, she's gonna watch your documentary.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but yeah, so yeah, she's great.
Awesome. Um, Very
Okay,
good.
so
Well,
I'm Andrea
so
Bemis,
remind
and
people where they can find you.
my hashtag is at Andrea Bemis on Instagram. And then I have a website with recipes for kids at letthemeatdirtkids.com. And then a bunch of recipes for CSA and farm to table recipes at dishingupthedirt.com.
Andrea, it was so great to finally chat with you. I look forward to meeting you in person. I hope your crew enjoys my documentary. I know my son met a bunch of them on a craft earlier in the summer. Um, and anyway, so yeah, I'm really proud of you. I'm really happy that this exists for young moms. There's not a book like this out there. I know Lily Nichols, a friend of mine, is an awesome dietitian and does a lot with pregnancy nutrition.
Yeah.
But I'm not aware of another like real food sort of cookbook like this that isn't only plant-based. So I'm really happy that this is out there in the world, and I know you're gonna have more in the future, but also your hands are gonna be um, tied too with the busyness of being a mom. So
Yeah.
so good luck with all of that, and I look forward to seeing you in December.
Yeah. Diana, thank you so much for having me on. This is great.
Thanks so much for listening today and for following my work. If you believe in making sure people all over the world should have access to nutritious food, please join my mission through my nonprofit, the Global Food Justice Alliance. Visit sustainabledish.com/join and become a sustaining member today. All sustaining members get early access to ad-free podcasts plus free downloads, and you'll be helping get healthy protein like meat, fish, and eggs to food insecure kids. That's sustainabledish.com/join. And thank you.